Hello, welcome to Lacey Walker Art. Today, it's time to spill the tea on art tutorials. Don't get me wrong, I love art tutorials. I just think we're unrealistic about how we present them. So, this is a little behind the scenes look at how one of those art tutorials gets made. Plus, I'll also be showing you how to paint crystals. The very first step in learning how to teach someone to do something is to dive in and to do some research. You have to yourself become an expert. And this, I think, is one of the problems that I fall into all the time. I watch an art tutorial and I assume that the person just knew how to do that. And they're just very talented. And I'm sure that's the case in some instances. But I think in a majority of instances, people actually kind of have to go through these steps in order to get good at something. So my point with this is I really want you to understand that the first time you do something like this, you're not going to necessarily be great, and it just takes practice and research and examination. So what I did was I took out all my crystals. I happen to have a lot of pretty ones, lucky for me. And I just practiced. I examined them, I sketched them, I practiced shading them, and just got to know different crystal shapes and what I liked in layouts until I figured out what I wanted to try and paint. At this point, I'm usually feeling pretty hopeful and excited about the upcoming project. I kind of suffer from a overconfidence at this point, which usually ends up biting me in the butt, as you'll see. Because I was generally happy with the drawing exploration phase, I start thinking, well, this will be easy. I'll just paint them, and I decide that I want to use watercolor because I think I will really like the kind of ethereal feeling of the watercolors on the crystals, and I'm not sure that I'd be able to capture some of that as well with something more like acrylic paints. So I dive right in with enthusiasm. I decide I'm going to use a bunch of different purples. I mix up all the beautiful colors, and I start filling in the boxes. I decide where the light is coming from and where I'm not going to fill in the colors or make them very light. And I also decide that I want to kind of go up to the edges of the boxes and not make the colors meet so that the edges, the white is kind of the nice edge line. And I keep painting and painting and painting, and it's just not great. So then I paint some more and some more, and it doesn't really seem to get better. So I add a background, thinking, oh, it must just be very dull because the background is blank. And that isn't really the case either. So I try looking at it really fast. And then I try changing the lighting. Maybe dark lighting will make it look better. No? Okay, so then I go make another cup of coffee. And I look at it again, and it's still not great. So I pet my dog. Then I decided I should go back to basics, and I redraw the crystals with the markers. And then I actually use alcohol markers to fill them in to kind of see if I can do some basic shading, that type of thing. Repractice. That's more basic, but I don't know, I kind of like it as a basic thing. Okay, so then I decide to try again. Maybe with a more basic crystal. Maybe my problem was the structure. I relook at my crystals. I work on this more basic crystal, and I paint and paint and paint some more. I start doubting myself, so I decide I should Google it. I make sure to open an incognito tab since I'm supposed to be the art expert and wouldn't want anyone knowing that I search how to paint things. I look at the crystals some more. I work a little more on the painting. I take a break. I do some exercise. I talk to my dog. I kiss my dog. I make some more coffee. And I keep working on it. I look up some inspiration on Instagram, and I work on it some more. I decide to try a different style, maybe something a little more illustrative, so I make kind of a watery background, and I focus on making the lines of the crystal darker and something a little bit different. I pet my dog, I go a little crazy, and then I get back to work. I go back to the other painting and I add more crystals. And finally, at this point, I think I'm starting to understand it. I come up with a few different techniques for making this look a little more like I want it to, and I understand the reason why it does look better. I also come up with kind of a formulaic answer to how to start the drawing, and I start feeling a lot better about it. And then finally, I set up a very pretty crystal and art display to show the progress and all of it together, and you know what? When it's not on its own, it looks pretty neat. Now that you know you might not be perfect at this the first time, and that you just need to keep trying, here's how you paint a crystal. Get a reference crystal or a reference photo. I recommend picking one that has a lot of straight, clean lines on it. In general, the shape of a crystal combines a triangle with a hexagon. The triangle is the top. The hexagon is kind of the shape of the crystal, and a cylinder because it is tall and round. The key part of it being kind of a cylinder is that it goes towards the back. There is some perspective, and so you're going to need to do some shading in this. So the very first step in drawing a crystal is to choose which side is going to be your main focal point, or the front part of it. Remember that irregularities in the crystals give it a little more character. So to start, pick one top point, one of the top triangles that you want to build your crystal upon. I'm doing one that is slightly to the left so that it's going to not be flat across the bottom, and I'm adding a little irregularity as if there's a chip to one of those points. From your center point, the right side of your top triangle, pull that line all the way down, and then make an equally angled line on the other side that matches up to your first triangle, and then finish that triangle off and pull it straight down. Don't go quite as far down as you did for the middle one. The middle one is going to be our most forefront facing part of the crystal. If you want to add irregularities like I am, make sure you have a eraser on hand so that you can go ahead and erase and make some different marks. So I want this to seem like it's sheared off. Then go back to the first triangle that you drew and take the outer edge of it and pull it down. Then we're going to draw a very small triangle to the left and pull that down too. You'll notice I didn't pull those down all the way because I want that first one that we drew down to be the focal front point. Connect the bottoms. You're going to want to make the angles at the front more sharp than the ones at the back, and then shade the ones that are further to the back. I lightly shade ones that are kind of side facing. This is going to give you a little more depth. Let's show that again. You can start with kind of a more irregular crystal and add your side triangles that are a bit more angular and smaller to the sides, and then pull down the bottom parts to have the front facets or the base facets. connect the bottoms together. Make sure that the front ones kind of appear lower than the back ones, and shade the sides. Decide which way your light is coming here. I've decided that's the darkest part. For this one, the light is coming down an angle, and this one it's coming straight to the side. So that left part is what I want to keep highlighted. If you're going to paint this, what you want to do is do a very light drawing and go ahead and go over it with an eraser to remove as much of the graphite as you can while you can still see it. Then you're going to mix up your colors. And start with what points are going to hit the light. So start with your lightest colors, and I decided to fill them in with a yellow because I wanted them to kind of glow as well as take less risk in trying to preserve the white. And you're going to fill all of those in. Make sure you fill in your front facing parts, or the part that's hitting the light, and fill each individual box in together but try to keep a little bit of gap between the two pieces. Then I go over the ones that are going to be in shadow in kind of a secondary color, a slightly darker color, or one that I want to kind of come through. So in this instance, I chose to do kind of a bright pink, and this is going to help me keep track of where all my different pieces are, but not kind of develop their color yet. Then you're going to want to shade the ones that are in the shadow further by adding different layers. I recommend starting with a darker color and washing your brush out and bringing it out to be nothing so that it has kind of a nice gradient. Add in some yellow if you think you want to have a bit of a glow. Add in some darker colors and just work back and forth within these boxes, trying to preserve that little white line in between. You'll do this until you're happy. And if you weren't super careful, then you're going to want to go back over those lines with a little bit of white gouache. And there, you've painted a crystal. Most importantly of all, please remember that you don't have to be perfect at this the first time. It's going to take a little bit of time and practice. So go ahead and just enjoy the process. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video and would like more videos like this, please subscribe.